Hey, genderqueer chat, Joe here. Eli sneezing right here. I've just got this furry brush and he's sticking his face in it. Okay, so this week's topic is phenomenally good. And I hated it at first because I didn't understand it. But if you watch Matt's video, just go back a few days and watch Matt's video, it will all be explained and it will all make sense to you. So the question is, scroll down. Girl-fags and guy-dykes. Have you ever met anyone who identifies in this way? Do you see any parallels or shared experiences between these identities and genderqueer expressions of sexuality? And the bonus question is, what kind of student were or are you? So don't let me forget the bonus question, because that's a good one too. I think I made that one up. Okay, so girl-fags and guy-dykes. I didn't know what it was. Matt explained it very well, so now that it's been explained to me, I think I should have used that term years ago, back when I sort of identified as cisgendered. I know I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I had always identified as a gay man trapped in a straight woman's body. For a lot of years, that was exactly the words I used to describe myself. I didn't have any other language for it. Then when I discovered the genderqueer chat channel, Eli's cracking me up here. I don't know if you can see. No, I'm not going to bring him into the frame because he's going to sneeze all over us anyway. Okay. When I discovered the genderqueer chat channel, Jess, one of my favorite contributors, once did a video where Jess said, if she, I don't know if she went by she or not, but I'll say she. If she were a guy, she would be a faggy guy. And I'll never forget that video because I always thought, I think before I knew I wasn't trans, but I suspected there was like a trans element to me. But the problem was I kind of had binary thinking in place where you were either ultra feminine or ultra masculine, and I was never a feminine woman. And the thing that I figured I might be, or if I was on the trans spectrum, it would never be a masculine man. It would be an effeminate man. But not necessarily effeminate. She used the word faggy, and although that may be considered, like a derogatory term or whatever, I got exactly what she meant. And that is to say that man who's in touch with his homosexual side, or his and that's not to say effeminate, right? That's, I don't know how to describe it. There is no language to describe it. However, I connected. This is totally off in left field, but this is something else that I've always kind of thought. And it parallels it in some weird universe. But when I was about 17, I read the book Roots, the book about slavery in the U.S. And I had to take believe it or not, my mom was pretty cool. She let me take 3 days off school to just lay in bed and read it. And all I did was weep. And I remember at the time believing pretty strongly in past lives. And I said, Mom, I was black in a past life. I know I was. Because my connection to black culture has always been, I don't know how to describe it. It borders on the weird. It's something like I listen to a lot of rap music, and I rap, and I say the N-word very liberally. And I have American friends who have explained to me that in the U.S., white people are not allowed to say the N-word. In Canada, it's not that... it's not like that here. It's not, people don't say it, but just because it's not, there isn't a huge black population, and it doesn't have the same overtones. There was no slavery as such as there was in the U.S. in Canada. So anyway, just slight aside, but I remember one time being in New Orleans doing Katrina cleanup, and I was parked beside kind of some thug fellow, some guy with a bandana and a gold tooth, and he had his system bumping, and I had my system bumping, and I think I was playing Tupac, and he was... Anyway, we were giggling, we were looking at each other and making kind of comments about each other's car stereos. And Death Around the Corner by Tupac comes on my stereo, so I start singing along to it, like at totally every N-word, nailing it, and he was laughing so hard. He thought it was hilarious, because here's this white Canadian chick who thinks she's black or something. And I don't know how to explain that. It's the same as when I go into a gay bar, I guess, and the gay guys look at me and probably think, oh, there's that straight chick, or whatever you want to call me, who thinks she's gay. And like I said, for many years, I was called a fag hag. I had one friend, Sheldon, who used to call me a fruit fly, which I thought was kind of cute. And I guess it just implied I was a woman, a cisgendered woman, who hung around or liked being around gay men. And it never took my gender or sexuality into the equation at all. It was their gender and sexuality that was the important part, right? They were the fags and I was the hag. So the term girl fag, even now, okay, so after all this sort of history I've just given you, I'm not a girl. I don't identify as a girl. In fact, I really, really, really hate the word girl. So I don't connect with that word on any level. It's kind of a catchy, cute expression. I'm sure what, they could put another word in there, a something fag, a female fag, whatever. They've used girl fag just as a catchphrase. But the word girl is what's throwing me off because I don't identify as a cisgendered female. I'll just pretend I do for a second for the sake of it. Am I a girl? Okay, I have female body parts. Let's just say that that's true. And am I a female-bodied person? Yes, I am. Am I a fag? Okay, so here we go with the definition of fag. And whenever I used to think about gay men, I guess I thought a fag was what I would now consider to be a bottom or a submissive, right? Like the person on the receiving end. You'll hear this a lot of times in jail culture and stuff, like the pitcher versus the catcher, and straight men can be the pitcher. Like, it's never a problem to be given it. It's getting it is what makes you the fag, right? And that's horribly what I just said there. Don't think I believe that. I'm just talking about the language that we have to use, and it's so basic and there's so little of it. But I always kind of perceived, I guess, the word fag as being someone. I never thought of tops, right, as kind of faggy. I always thought of them as the alpha men, the tops, the bears, whatever you want to call them. And anyway, if I am not sexually, I don't know, I'm not a top or a bottom, but I'm definitely not like an exclusive bottom, and I'm definitely not an exclusive top. So am I, is there a fag element? I'm talking in circles now. Let me just think out loud. As a straight, pardon me, not a straight, but a female-bodied person whose sexuality can be described as innie versus outie, right? But I have two holes, so to speak, or three, or however many you want to put. It could be argued that it would be easier for me to be a fag than it would be for a guy to be a dyke, if that makes sense. If we're talking innies and outies here. I do identify with the gay culture. I do identify with gay men. Sexually, I don't feel like a girl in bed, so to speak. I've never felt like, this is a very challenging question. Let me just think out loud. Because I don't shave, for one thing, and I don't have a typically female body, the kind of man who's attracted to my body, I always maintain, has to have kind of an alternate sexual preference compared to the mainstream, right? So a guy who is attracted to me and my body, and it's one thing to be attracted to me, it's another thing to be turned on by my body. And I think the kinds of guys that I've been with in my life who have been attracted to my body are attracted to a sort of a masculine portion of me. And I think those guys have gay or bi tendencies. I really, truly do. I've had a lot of boyfriends who were gay, a couple of boyfriends who were bi, and I've had a couple of boyfriends who had gay fathers, which is to say that they were more open-minded, I think, to just general ways of being. Now, that's not to say their sexuality was defined by their father. My sexuality is not defined by my father, or my mother, or whatever. But I think with there being such a stigma attached to gay sex in particular, I think a man who can accept gay sex, generally speaking, and then as it applies to himself or what he wants to do in bed, or how his partner looks or what acts are taking place, I think that makes him a little bit more in the gray area of the spectrum as far as, that's not to say he's not straight, and that's not to say he's gay. I just mean he's a little more open-minded to it, right? And I'm attracted to men like that. I definitely am. I find homophobia very, very a turnoff, a major turnoff. And I find men who are attracted to ultra-feminine women, I find that a major turnoff. One thing I will say is that in my experience, most of my gay friends have had an extremely high sex drive. And also, almost every gay man, including some of the ones that I would never have thought, he's going to start sneezing. Almost all my gay friends used to go to bathhouses in the 90s, which is anonymous sex. Sweetie. Just kind of cheap one-nighters, anonymous sex with multiple people or one or whoever. And when I first found out about this, I was probably 19 years old, and all my friends were going to the bathhouse that night, and I was going home. And I was scandalized. I thought this was horrible. I thought, you people are sluts, or I don't know what I was thinking, but I just was scandalized by the whole concept, and yet none of them were. And in retrospect now, I can see any sort of alternate sexuality, like a sexuality that is not the mainstream, which is sort of like, stay a virgin till you're married. Not even necessarily, but monogamy is one example of kind of mainstream sexual thinking, which is, or that, like cheap anonymous sex is not really widely regarded in heterosexual culture, and yet it's very common in gay culture, and it took me a lot of years to kind of get used to that, and to plunk myself into that, to say, am I a girl fag, or am I a fag? Would I have anonymous sex with strangers? I don't think so, because I have an extremely low sex drive. However, if that were different, I don't have any problem with the concept. Like, I don't have any problem with the concept of anonymous sex or sex with multiple partners. I don't think it makes you a bad person. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. So, but that took years to develop. That took years to get rid of, conditioning and ways of thinking that were influenced by religion and culture and society and shit like that. I mean, even using the word slut, right, is very judgmental, very, to assume that anybody who has sex with more than 3 or 4, however, single digits, I don't know, make up a number. So, I guess by some people's standards, I'm a slut. I haven't slept with anybody in years, but I mean, I'm in the double digits somewhere, so I guess that makes me a slut. But, I don't know, there's something kind of, in the gay culture, it just seemed so much more highly sexed, and that could be because we were all younger. Maybe things are different now that I'm so much older, and everybody was kind of highly sexed when we were in our 20s. I don't know. This whole subject just fascinated me, because I did and still do often refer to myself as a gay man trapped in a straight woman's body, which would imply that I have some girl fag tendencies. I wouldn't use that term to describe myself because I'm not a girl, and I guess I'm not a fag, but put it together, and there's definitely some commonality there. And I do identify as genderqueer. So the second part of the question was, or do you see any parallels or shared experiences? Sure. Okay, I'm running out of time, so I got to squeeze in. What kind of student are you? I was one of those kids in elementary and high school who never studied a day in my life. I never, ever, ever cracked a book. I was very naturally, I was very adept. School came easy to me. If I sat in class and listened, I got straight A's. And it was a bit of a rude awakening when I went to college, because I still, not even just college, but just in life, I never developed good study habits. I don't know how to sit and study. I never had to. So in college, when I was forced to, stuff like Linux, I took weird courses, Actually, in trucking school, I had to take, what was that course called? Load securement. Different courses, or different math classes that were, when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and you had to remember this stuff from high school. Eli. I did have to study, and it didn't come easy to me, because I didn't have the skill set to study. Now, I still got Dean's Honors in college. I still am a very, very good student, always have been. I sit in the front row. I'm like this. Actually, I was in a school the other day. I was fixing the computer, like fly on the wall, as I always am, and I could see this one student up near the front of where the teacher was, and the teacher was asking a question. And this kid was in the front row, and he was going, oh, 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 oh. And you could see the teacher didn't want to ask him, because he wanted to ask other kids in the class. And I was like, that was me. That was me when I was a kid. Always in the front row, always trying to answer. I was kind of designated as gifted when I was a kid, and they sent me to a special school, but I quit because I mentioned this in the school video, I think. There were class issues that they didn't take into consideration. I was like an inner city kid, and everybody else in the gifted program was a suburban kid with, whatever, parents who had, middle class incomes, and I didn't. I grew up in poverty, and it was a bigger difference. So what if we're all smart? We are all socioeconomically different, and that was definitely the bigger divide. So, yeah, I've always done very well in school. I didn't have opportunities to go to school like some people. I never went to university, couldn't afford it. I often wonder what I could have been if things had been different. There's no doubt in my mind I can be anything I want to be. Like I said, when I was 35, I went back and got my transport truck driving license just for the hell of it, just to prove to myself that I could. Actually, at the time, I wanted to be a long-haul truck driver, but I went back to school and took computer science when I was 29. I took library tech when I was 19. And I've always been an excellent student. I just, I don't know how. It's not like, things just come easy to me on that level. Other things don't come easy to me. For instance, making friends. Never been actually, making friends is easy. Keeping them is not so easy for me. Okay, I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.